It's another case of alleged police brutality, this time accusations leveled against the LA County Sheriff's Department.
And a man who said he was held down and beaten by 3 sheriff deputies in Compton.
An alleged gang of sheriff's deputies within the LA County Sheriff's Department known as the Executioners.
The group that became the most dangerous is one we know as the Executioners.
3 deputies were beating a black inmate. He was handcuffed to the waist.
The real badasses from the 200 and 300 boys wanted to go to Compton.
Today, we take you inside the world of the LA Sheriff gangs, groups who have names like the Executioners, Vikings, Jump Out Boys, and Regulators. These men in uniform have been accused of everything from beatings to planting evidence to murder, robberies, and kidnapping. Now, these deputy cliques have long been an open secret in Los Angeles, but to those outside the LA bubble, the reality is shocking. To investigate this properly, we assembled an expert cast of characters, starting with John Sweeney, the legendary attorney who has beaten LASD in court time and time again. Mark, a former deputy who went to prison for robbery while in uniform and exposes life inside the departments. Paulina Juarez, an LA Central Jail chaplain of 19 years who saw the brutality firsthand. Alan Romero, a lawyer who represented 2 former deputies turned whistleblowers. And finally, multiple mothers, including one whose 120-pound son was beaten beyond recognition by 5 deputies. Join us today as we take a deep look inside America's largest sheriff office and the gangs that hide within its walls.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have quite an investigation for ourselves this morning. And to me, this is a time to be in tip-top shape with mental focus and clarity. There's an interesting supplement out there from the resin company called Himalayan Shilajit. And Google this for yourself. I mean, you can find it in WebMD, NIH, studies out there that this increases male enhancement, stamina, mental clarity, and focus. And this is what I do with it. I glob it up on this little serving spoon type thing. I put it in my hot coffee. I let it start to dissolve and disintegrate. And you know who takes this? Sherpas. Sherpas are some of the most elite athletes on the planet. These are the people that help lift packs up Mount Everest. It has fulvic acid with 85 minerals that help with hormone balance. This is gonna sound funky, but it also has micro gold particles, which is supposed to help with nutrient absorption. Guys, for someone out there that wants just that little more edge, this is something that you should consider trying. If you're out there feeling like crap, get your diet together, exercise together, and then sprinkle in supplements like this to take your game to the next level. And melt it off, okay? It's in the coffee, boom. I got my caffeine, I got my magic supplement right here, and I'm ready for business. If this sounds up your alley, go into my description, click the link, and get 10% off using my code TommyG off your first order. Let's hit the streets and start this investigation. What adjectives would you use to describe the Compton Executioners?
Assholes. My name is Romel Agee. I'm currently a California licensed private investigator. I specialize in police misconduct and police wrongful deaths in the hands of law enforcement.
And you are an LA County Sheriff?
Yes.
I'm John Sweeney. I'm an attorney, civil rights attorney. My career has been dedicated to the pursuit of justice, specifically police excessive force cases that I have a passion for.
In the mid to late 90s, the Sheriff's Department took over control of the policing in Compton in the year 2000.
Alan Romero is a lawyer who has represented 2 deputies who tried to blow the whistle on the Compton department. One of them was Officer Art Gonzalez, a Marine Corps veteran who spoke out against the Executioners and was met with death threats. The other was Captain Larry Waldy, who says he was targeted by his fellow officers after he made it known within the department that he opposed the Executioners.
So what happened is you had some competing groups who were going to try and control the station. The group that became the most dangerous is one we know as the Executioners. Now, what the real name of this group is, we may never know, because even in trial, the leader of the group, a deputy by the name of Jaime Juarez, who was a few years ago promoted to detective, said the group doesn't have a name.
It turns out this group does have a name, and they go by the Compton Executioners, and they are perhaps the most dangerous and ruthless of the 24 known and documented sheriff gangs in the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, which we'll often refer to as LASD for short.
We're headed to the Compton station for you guys to get some footage of the exterior of the location where the Executioners were housed. The recent LA County Sheriff explosion that killed 3 deputy sheriffs.
It appears to be, quote, a horrific incident that killed at least 3 at a law enforcement training facility in Los Angeles.
One of them was the deputy that shot and killed Robert Thomas Jr.
The executioners started in the Los Angeles County Jail. Every deputy sheriff has to go through custody for training. Custody is the lockup. All the police departments in the county of Los Angeles, the sheriff department handles the prisoners in all of the county of Los Angeles that are being prosecuted.
Before hitting the streets, every LA sheriff's deputy starts their career by working in the jails. Some say it's a great proving ground and a crash course for handling chaos, but others say starting in the jails conditions the deputies to get the feeling that everyone they deal with on the streets is a criminal.
Brother was killed in Pensions Detention Center March 3rd, 2017. They had originally told me that he had a seizure. He fell off a top bunk and then was pronounced dead.
Did he have a history of seizures?
No. As the time went on, I went ahead and got my own feeling that something wasn't right. So I did my own homework, found out that it wasn't a seizure, that he had been beaten to death in Wayside Detention Center. They said they didn't have any pictures. And I said, that's odd. So then at the end, I got all the pictures and that showed all the details.
And what did you learn when you saw the pictures?
That his teeth were kicked in. He had, looks like stab wounds, puncture wounds, and a lot of the details in the autopsy report, like broken ribs and stuff, it kind of made sense after.
When you talk to gang members in Los Angeles and you say, oh, you're part of a big street gang, they say, are you kidding me? That the cops, the sheriffs are the biggest gang of all.
The only difference is that they have uniforms.
Our next witness, Paulina Juarez, served as a chaplain inside Men's Central Jail for over 15 years. Central Jail is widely regarded as the most notorious lockup in Los Angeles and a critical piece of territory for the LA Sheriff gangs. In 2025, it's already on track to become one of the deadliest years on record, with 26 inmates losing their lives so far. And after a long career inside the Central Jail, Paulino can speak on things that few other people can.
From what you know from inmates that have stayed there, are beatings common from the sheriffs?
Yes, there's a lot of common, because the whites run that area.
Which deputy gang is this?
The whites.
That's what they're called?
Yeah.
Lizetta is speaking on the Wayside Whiteys. This sheriff gang's territory is the Pitches Detention Center, also known as the Wayside Detention Center. Now, the Whitey symbol was throwing up their hands with their middle fingers crossed into a W, and they were known for targeting black inmates that fought other white inmates. And for reference, there was a case of Clyde L. Crawford, where the deputies handcuffed him, beat him dozens of times, including with a flashlight, all while yelling, Wayside Whiteys. And this is the group that beat Lizetta's brother to death.
When I work with my little car with books, Bibles, I start listening like, hoop, hoop, hoop. And I stopped and I went back, but it was close. I was on the bars and I saw like from here to the wall how 3 deputies were beating a black inmate. He was handcuffed to the waist and chains, so he was against the wall, and one deputy was here, one here, one here. They were beating until finally he was, please stop, and he fell on the cement with a head, and you see the blood, and they still kicking him on the floor. And one more, he said, stop, was the last time I can hear. And I was on I tried to say something, but I can't. Man, it was really hard. It was like 4 minutes.
I think that at this point, everybody has such a fear of them that they just don't want to even go and touch that. That's a road they don't want to cross.
How long did you serve and which department were you in?
LA LA County Sheriff's Department 15 years.
What made you leave?
I didn't leave on my own accord. I did a stupid thing. I was convinced to do something for the greater good of someone else, and it led to my arrest, where I got 7 years in the federal prison system. I did about 5 on good time credit, and 1 year of halfway house for Second Chance Act, and I got home early.
Are you able to say what you got arrested for?
Me and some co-conspirators decided to do a fake search warrant on a medical marijuana distribution center run by the Vietnamese mafia. We did a full-blown robbery, and we were caught by the feds shortly after.
There's no professional jailing staff or deputies in the sheriff's department. You're stuck in the jails, and almost everyone stuck in the jails at the beginning of their career for 2, 3, 5, 8 years wants to get out and patrol, because that's where they feel where the action's at, and that's where they feel the best career path for them is.
And those deputies there started a gang called the 200 Boys and the 300 Boys. They were violent with these inmates. They beat, they planted evidence on them. They did all kind of horrible, nefarious things with them. After you rotate out of custody, you're asked what station you want to be assigned to, and the real badasses from the 200 and 300 Boys wanted to go to Compton.
Where they originated as far as being the executioners. This is where they operated from and out of.
Are these guys still active?
No, they've spread them out. They've sent them to different locations.
So if I go in there and talk to them and say, hey, sir, I'm in an active investigation, I'm gonna need you to comply with me right now.
You can try. Sheriffs are no joke, okay? They're no joke. They're mad at a lot of people, okay? Especially if you go in there talking about the executioners.
I feel a little nervous with all the stories that you hear. Hey there, how are ya?
Good, man.
Looking to do a little interview. Do you have a press contact here?
Let me go talk to them.
We have a little investigation we're looking for help with.
Okay. What's the investigation?
It's about the Compton executioners.
I don't know if the station's gonna have specific stuff.
It's some of the known associates actually happen to have resided in this building. I don't know if you've seen anyone. They have the skeleton tattoos with the AK-47s and then the Nazi helmet.
I know nothing about it, man.
Have you been in their presence at all? Like, ever been with any of the known members?
I have no idea.
Okay, it's an active investigation, so.
So far, we've mostly heard from the victim side of the story, and aside from Mark, it's been nearly impossible to land an on-camera interview with a current or former Los Angeles sheriff. However, I did speak with a couple off-camera, and here was their perspective. Every day, they go out and risk their lives against legitimately dangerous gang members who rob, shoot, and terrorize neighborhoods. And they say this: we enter the danger zone to take the fight to these bad guys, and yes, sometimes we get rough, but these are rough, dangerous people we are dealing with. And one surprising thing they also said is that the so-called sheriff gang cops are not the worst of the department, but the best, the bravest, because these guys are the ones most willing to go down and face the most dangerous guys on the street. And while this doesn't excuse the crimes of the sheriff gangs, it did give me an interesting perspective to think about from the other side of the coin.
All right, now we're at the scene of Avery Cody Jr., where another murder by the LA Sheriff's Department occurred.
There was this young man named Avery Cody Jr. On July 5th, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they were walking to a McDonald's to have lunch, and they were on their way back at a very busy intersection. They were caught on video of this Winchell's donut stand walking to the McDonald's. After they finished their lunch, they walked back down the same direction that they came from. There was a don't walk hand up, and they looked to their left, and there's a Crown Victoria clear sign that is an undercover police vehicle, and it was 2 deputy sheriffs in there. The kids decided just to backtrack 2 feet and wait for the light to turn green. And the officers, for no reason whatsoever, got out of the car and told them to come to the car, and they started to search them, and then Avery takes off running, and he angles out into the street. And then he's picked up by this camera again. And then you see this officer run after him and then stop about right here and gets into a crouch, raises his gun and fire. Hits him in the back, and little Avery falls in that center median right there, dead. Although I have no evidence that the shooting officer was doing anything to get into a gang, I didn't know at this point whether or not there was a gang. But with this series of shootings, I suspected that a gang existed.
My name is Vanessa Perez. I'm the mother of Joseph Andrew Perez, who was severely beaten by Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department on July 27, 2020.
The sweatshirt you're wearing has an extremely brutal and disturbing photo on that. Can you describe what we're seeing?
This is a photo from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department that they took in the hospital after they beat my son. They're seeing my son after he was punched 121 times.
Do you know how many officers were beating him at the same time?
7. They gave different reasons. My son's mentally ill. He struggled with bipolar, schizophrenia, and psychosis. And as he was a couple blocks away from my house, he was in crisis, talking to himself, hearing voices. And I was looking for him. I couldn't find him. And what I did hear were sirens, and then they went quiet. And then I would hear sirens again, and I would see sheriffs going in different directions. I followed the helicopter about a couple blocks from my house, and that's when I found almost like the whole department was there now by that point.
How many officers do you think were there?
Oh, at least 30.
You see your son?
I didn't know my son was on the floor until about 45 minutes later. When I first got there, they said that there was a bad fight. And then I seen deputies put a light-skinned man on a gurney.
Under Section 186.22 of the California Penal Code, a criminal gang is described as an organization of 3 or more people that have a common name or symbol, have a pattern of committing crimes, and they do this either alone or together. And it seems clear to me that these sheriff gangs would indeed be looked at as criminal gangs under California law. Which brings me to the question of why haven't any of these groups been charged under the RICO Act? After all, that's what would happen if the Blood Serranos or the Hells Angels did the same exact things these cops are doing. This seems to be a serious double standard of justice. Tell me what you guys think in the comments.
Like maybe about 30 minutes later, the sergeant came up to me and said that now the story was my son was burglarizing a car, and they confirmed that it was my son. And maybe about 45 minutes later, my son started screaming. He was screaming, why did you do this to me? Why? And he had to go back to being quiet. And then that's when I knew that was my son.
Mark, were you in a sheriff gang?
Was I was not. At one point, I was at Century Station where the regulators were at. Go on.
Within these departments, how common was it to be part of a sheriff gang?
It's like a secret. You don't really know that they don't talk about it. It's like a station. You don't just walk around, hey, you're a fucking regulator, But I think these guys, a lot of them that chase ink, they go there to get that tattoo. Once they get it, they feel super proud or whatever it is. And it could be raining and 50 degrees and they're wearing shorts and flip-flops so they could show their tattoo loud and proud. It's like, come on, dude, really?
Have you ever attended an inking party?
Now, usually at the off-training parties, when a group of guys get off training at the station, that's usually when there'll be their inkings are done at that same time. It's not done there. It's done afterwards. It's done usually in a dude's house or something to that effect. But I haven't been able to go to one of those myself because I wasn't invited to be getting the ink. But I know a lot of guys that did.
Folks, the truth about the violent behavior you are hearing about is that within these departments, violence against civilians was not only encouraged, but celebrated. For example, Officer Larry Waldy testified that the Compton executioners actually held a party at a restaurant to commemorate a deputy-involved shooting. Another way violence was celebrated when a deputy would commit violence or murder against a citizen, they would sometimes host an event giving the man responsible a tattoo, which to me, it makes these deputy cliques sound no different than a common street gang.
So there are significant legal barriers to investigating and holding officers like Jaime Juarez and the rest of the executioners accountable. One of the primary barriers is the fact that you have to get someone within the department to stand up and be a whistleblower. That's going to 100% destroy their career, and they have to know that at the point. And we had some really brave people. We had Larry Waldy and we had Art Gonzalez come through and do that.
Now, is it true that people would receive their tattoos after they committed an act of violence or killed a civilian?
I can't speak for all of the station tattoos. The original ones, probably not. The newer ones that came after, yeah, I would say so.
Then we got a case, the Dante Taylor case. And Dante Taylor was a young man who had 4 kids.
Right now, folks, we are at the scene of where Dante Taylor was killed, and this is the case that broke open wide the investigation against the Compton executioners with their tattoos and their gangs within the department. I'm gonna let these guys take it from here.
We're on the corner of Wilmington Avenue and Brazil, city of Compton. This area is controlled, or was controlled, probably still is controlled by the Cedar Block Compton pirate. Dante Taylor lived here at this location and was hanging out with his good friend George Taylor. It was about dusk, and he came out of his house and walked northbound on Wilmington. He was encountered by 2 deputy sheriffs. This is Samuel Aldama. This is Mizraim Orega. They are the 2 deputies who shot and killed Dante Taylor. They stopped him, asked him if he was on probation. He said no, took off running. He was on his way down to that liquor store, I'm sure it's still there. He was stopped right around this area, maybe in this block, and then the deputies claimed that he pulled out a silver pistol and didn't point it at him, just took off running. My investigator, former Deputy Sheriff Rommel Agee, interviewed several witnesses along this street, is that correct?
Correct. I talked to the neighbors here. A few of them talked to me, said they didn't see anything, of course. Okay, that's typically what happens in neighborhoods. I wasn't able to talk to anybody until we actually got over to where the shooting took place, where somebody actually responded. They didn't know anything along the way, but over on the
other side of the wash.
On the side of the wash, they did tell me that they did not see a gun.
How these cop gangs really affect our communities, especially communities of color, is that they're not going to follow the law. They're not going to follow instructions from their superiors. They're going to go out there, they're going to beat up whoever they have to beat up, they're going to tackle, they're going to accost people without reasonable suspicion to try and get guns. That's their main thing, they want guns. Sometimes when they would lose people on pursuits, they would call in ghost guns. They would say, yeah, man with a gun. So of course every unit responds to find the person with the gun, and it turns out there's no guns.
Can you speak to the practice of planting evidence by the Compton executioners?
What came up over and over again is they say that the person had a gun and that the gun's not found, but they claim that that was the justification for them using force against them.
You know, you had a lot of that type of stuff going on. I mean, they're going to get caught no matter what. If you're planting dope, I mean, I remember seeing a couple of shootings where they thought there was a gun. They shot the dude, they thought he had a gun, and he didn't, and all of a sudden a gun appeared near his hand. Hey, how'd that get there? Fell out of the sky?
And by the way, when after the shooting and these officers made up this story that he had a gun, they had gun-sniffing dogs come out and scour this entire route. And they searched it for 2 or 3 days in trees. They had poles that they were shaking the trees, and of course, no gun was found.
Interesting to that, guys, is their claim that he had a chrome-plated revolver. He was wearing loose-fitting shorts that they claim he had in his waistband. If you're running with those, that's not going to stay in your pants. And in doing so, they went across the bridge here, they went around the corner, and that deputy that was on foot claims that while chasing him, Taylor pulled out the gun, showing the gun again, and that's when he believed his life was in danger and shot at him. The other deputy hears the shots, they corner him, and they riddle him with bullets.
They shot him, and he runs back toward the wash, and the deputy waiting over this side of the wash shot at him and hit him in the leg, wounded him. He tried to go back through the fence. By this time, the other deputy had approached the wash and shot him, and he laid down on the ground. In a forensics show, they stood over him and shot him several more times. Let me ask you this, Rommel. Why is it important for police to have placed a gun in his hand at this point?
So they could justify shooting, because they're going to say that his life, believing that he was going to fire at him to protect himself and others, he shot.
While we were filming, a few youngsters with connections to the neighborhood Pyrus came up to see what we were doing. So I decided to ask them their thoughts on this story. Here's what they said.
What do you guys think when you hear of the sheriff's gangs being able to just kill people and get away with it? Like, what does it make you feel?
It makes me feel angry because it's like they make it seem like we the most dangerous ones when the whole time it's right in front of you. Like if you check a lot of these police people tattoos, it's a lot of gang naps.
And they always have an excuse for what they do.
Like literally, like I thought he was reaching. I thought the whole time he was just walking
home.
Good
reason for them to shoot at them, kill them, you know.
My dad said they used to treat him foul. If he had like some weed in his pocket, they'll throw some more. They'll say like it's more than 2.5 grams, so you could go to jail. Like.
What did happen to them as a result?
They both were investigated, but ultimately the DA didn't press any charges against either of them. But the New York Times did a ride-along with Aldama and Orrego before this ever happened. And they made clear that they think of the community that they police not as their own community. They talk about African Americans in disparaging ways, even in that interview with the New York Times.
John was the guy who broke the whole gang story open. At that one deposition they took of Aldama, where he got Aldama to admit that he had this tattoo.
When we took the deposition of Samuel Aldama is the deposition that really cracked this case and exposed this whole sheriff gang thing. Nobody had ever heard of the executioners. Nobody had ever known their name. They were an extremely secretive group. I asked the same question of all the cases I just told you about. I said, do you have any tattoos on your person? He said, yes, I do. I said, why don't you describe them? I said, first of all, where are they? He said, they're on my arms. One of them, he said, is a St. Michael's, I think he said, tattoo. It's like the patron saint of police officers to protect them. The other one was on his other arm. He said it was a family symbol or something, you know, I love my wife or something like that. I said, Deputy, what about the one on your leg? And he started gulping, and his jugular started throbbing. I knew I had something. As a cross-examiner, I've cross-examined hundreds of people over the years. It's a skeleton. Oh, okay. And I knew that all those gangs, the base is a skeleton because it symbolizes death. And he goes on to describe this sinister tattoo with this Kalashnikov rifle, AK-47. On the magazine of the rifle was the Roman numeral XX. VIII, which stands for the 28th substation of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, which is Compton. That's on the magazine. He has a Nazi helmet on with CPT, which stands for Compton. He's surrounded by flames, which symbolizes he's emerging from hell. Very sinister tattoo. It goes from his knee all the way down to his ankle. That is the first time it was revealed to the public that there was a sinister gang within the city of Compton.
I mean, I think when anyone sees these tattoos, you wouldn't believe that this would be on a police officer's body, especially with a Nazi helmet and flames. And as someone who grew up thinking of the police as the good guys and the very Hollywood idea of the police as the good guys, I was shocked when it became clear that this was not a one-off, a rogue deputy. This was a part of a pattern and practice. They shared the tattoos and they were sequentially numbered. It was shocking.
You might be wondering how many Compton deputies are tied to the executioners. Inside sources estimate that of 100 officers at the station, about 20 are Inc. members and another 20 are prospects or close associates. That's nearly 40% of the station. And for perspective, even during the height of the Catholic Church's scandals, only about 6% of the priests were implicated in wrongdoing. To put this another way, imagine calling 911 in Compton and having a 40% chance that a gang member in uniform shows up to the scene.
What does that make you think that these guys in broad daylight, after the beating or the killing of a citizen, are having beers, getting tattoos, and celebrating together?
It's the biggest gang in America.
Now, do you know the names of the deputies involved in this beating?
Yes.
Can you say them?
Yeah, Sean Merrick, Abraham Rivera, Jake Adamo, Sebastian Pomba, Vincent Rodriguez, Paul Sedana.
Did any of these guys get in trouble for this?
Not that I'm aware of.
A write-up?
Not that I'm aware of. They all played the victim. In the police reports, they paint a narrative as if my son was Rocky Balboa in his prime, Mike Tyson. You know, every deputy claims that he beat up each deputy. Each deputy says they were beaten. One said he screamed, "I believe my hand is broken."
How do you think he broke his hand if he did?
Probably from the 20 to 30 punches he gave my son to his head.
Where is your son today?
My son right now is incarcerated. Put a PC-69 when you are charged, when the cops charge you for beating them up.
Oh, so he got charged for this?
Yeah, he got charged for that.
Not only did he get a beating, but he actually got charged with the crime of beating them.
He got sentenced to prison. They ended up giving him the county time. He did his 2 years county time, but he was sentenced to 3 years in state prison.
So he got the shit kicked out of him and then got sent to prison for it. Do you think anyone will ever be held responsible for this?
I hope so.
What do you say to the people that say these cops are dealing with very violent street gangs? You kind of have to recruit monsters to fight monsters.
We're better than that. And I think, I mean, especially, like I said, I've been on both sides, and I do think most police officers, law enforcement, and people who train law enforcement care deeply about following the Constitution and doing the right thing and not becoming a monster. And I also think if you do want to restore that community trust between law enforcement and the people they serve, you have to get away from this idea of violence is tolerated and that you have to meet the criminals halfway, because that's just, it's never gonna work.
The last thing I got for you is this. People say, you know, to be a police officer is to protect and serve. And when you have these gangs, they're kind of violating their initial oath. What do you think about that?
It's kind of a tough question to really answer, but I will say it does essentially if they make it that way. Having a tattoo and being part of a group of fellas that, you know, if you're just proud to be a deputy sheriff, and I work this station and we all survived some kind of shooting or some casualty, or we're just here just risking our lives on a daily basis and we're just trying to be the best cops we can, great, so be it. But once they start taking off and doing thuggery, that's when their oath has been, you know, upended.
When you were in, what % of the sheriffs would you say, questionable, on the bad side?
Let's say there's 100 deputies. I'd say 25 of them are assholes.
That's a pretty big number.
That's a pretty big number.
Yeah. And those 25 can rack up a lot of
a lot, man.
And the other 75 suffer greatly.
Yes, because we get the brunt of going out on a call and being called assholes and being disrespected.
Do you have any reason to believe that this behavior, this gang behavior within the sheriff's department persists even today?
The two other sheriffs that we had before, I think it's hard to say what the actual sheriffs were doing. The deputy sheriffs we know from the whistleblower what they were doing. What the sheriffs were doing, they were doing nothing to stop it as far as we could tell through all of our discovery. Sheriff Luna, the current sheriff though, I think has taken a much more proactive approach to this, and I think there has been a change in culture in the LA Sheriff's Department because of it.
It does seem like things are changing for the better.
I think so.
Some people wonder if these sheriff gangs are still happening today, and it depends on who you ask. Some say that the current sheriff, Robert J. Luna, is taking strong action to snuff out LASD gang activity, and that may be so. But just in the news this month, a crazy story broke.
Just into the newsroom here at 6, shocking allegations against a former police officer now accused of kidnap for ransom.
The short of the story is that a group of LA cops were hired by these sort of crypto warlord characters to kidnap and forcibly rob rivals for sizable crypto thefts. To me, if officers representing the department are kidnapping teenagers to steal from them, I suspect that the citizens of Los Angeles still harbor a bit of fear that the sheriff gangs are currently in action. The fact is, the cops that participated in these gangs to beat, rob, plant evidence, and murder the citizens that they were sworn to protect are clear-cut criminals, and unfortunately, most of these guys will never be held accountable. And this is anyone's guess, but are the bad sheriffs out there? Are they 1% of the force, 10% of the force? It's hard to say, but it does leave an ugly taste taste in our mouth when the people that enforce the law on us are not held to the same criteria that we are. The uncomfortable truth is you see this double standard a lot with law enforcement. I mean, look at who goes to arrest workers at Amazon or Starbucks when they have their union protest. It's the cops who have the strongest union structure in the country. And don't get me wrong, I am a big fan of good police officers, and I think we need these guys urgently more than ever in our society. But I believe in the old Spider-Man movie quote that with great power comes great responsibility. So folks, I hope we've given you something to think about in this episode, and I want to give a special thanks to Andrew Callahan and his team for helping plant the seed of the idea for this topic to cover. I love you guys. See you next week.
Folks, hope you enjoyed this episode. You want to watch another? Here. You want to subscribe? Over here. See you next week.